All right. Here's why Candace Owens and I trended on Twitter yesterday. Ben Shapiro.
Okay, so a couple of obvious stipulations up front. Men have always done cross-dressing. There have always been some segment of men who cross-dress. Very often it was played for comedy. And the entire premise of Some Like It Hot is that it is funny when men cross-dress. That is not what the Harry Styles photo shoot is about, right? There have been pop stars who have done this before. David Bowie wearing a dress. They always look like idiots, by the way. They always look ridiculous. But the whole point is to be transgressive, right? But what we are seeing with the Vogue article is not just an attempt to be transgressive, obviously. It's an attempt to redefine masculinity itself. I mean, this is overt in the article. I'm not making it up. I already read you the segments from it.
Coming from the guy who always wears that silly hat. I don't even know why.
The Vogue magazine article. Okay, so my friend Candace Owens tweets out, quote, "There is no society that can survive without strong men. The East knows this. In the West, the steady feminization of our men, at the same time that Marxism is being taught to our children, is not a coincidence. It is an outright attack. Bring back manly men."
Bring back manly men. And I want your guys' opinion on something. So, Hassan, you guys might have seen, made a post about him and Ben Shapiro. I could probably find it really quick on Twitter. Basically saying, like, okay, if Hassan could be considered a man at the same time when Ben Shapiro is considered a man, then it's clear that the gender roles are very, wide encompassing and, they're pretty much bullshit. And there's these pictures being shared around everywhere. A real comparison between Ben Shapiro and Hassan. Guess which one wants to restore masculinity? Now, some people had a problem with this for obvious reasons, but I don't have a problem with it because it's saying, I guess that's how you look at it. So it's good to say, like, people are accepted for, like, Ben Shapiro's accepted into being a man because he wants to be a man, although he's very short, can't grow facial hair, he was an opera boy, all things that are not considered by himself to be very masculine. And then Hassan is very tall, model, buff, can grow a beard, obviously, going bald. He is considered what is very masculine, and they could both be considered men because they want to be considered men. So I don't have a problem with getting the point across this way. I think it's actually kind of funny, and it throws it back into Ben Shapiro's face. Because I think it's kind of silly where, the people who are like, we need more masculine men, are the same people, like, crying that Christmas is being stolen, and also wearing a mask is oppression, and also, like, all the shit they complain about, really, but...
Okay. I'm not sure what exactly is controversial about this, that masculinity...
Yeah, it works on normies. That's really the point I want to get across. Things that work on normies are typically pretty good to do, just because it's about the outcome, right?
Good and important thing when channeled properly. It requires men to defend family. It requires men to provide. It requires men to channel their aggressive instincts towards defense of values and civilization.
Their aggressive instincts over defense of values and civilizations. Oh.
Men to provide. It requires men to channel their aggressive instincts towards defense of values and civilization. It requires assertiveness. Aristotle talks about masculinity in exactly these sorts of terms. Harvey Mansfield has an excellent book called Manliness, all about masculinity and what distinguishes it from femininity. Now, it's not that the left doesn't acknowledge these are qualities. The left fully acknowledges the qualities of masculinity and femininity, right? Which is why they suggest that there are a wide variety of genders, because they suggest that a man can be very feminine, and this actually makes him a woman, right? So they agree.
No, okay, if a man is very feminine, it doesn't mean he's a woman. It means he's a man who is displaying what society considers to be feminine characteristics. If a girl is typical what they would consider a tomboy, that doesn't mean she identifies as an actual boy or that she is seen as a boy. That's what?
This means that there is such a thing as masculinity and femininity. They then just suggest that men should act like women, right? That masculinity should be made more feminine. And Candace disagrees.
No, acting like women doesn't even exist. Wearing a dress doesn't mean you're acting like a woman.
She says that when you make men more feminine, when you suggest that men need to be like women, they need to wear dresses, right? That this undermines some fundamentally...
No one said men need to wear dresses. Like, he always displays all of this culture war stuff as, like, supremely authoritarian doctrine set by the far left Marxist or something.
Good thing about men. In the same way that if you said that women ought to act like men, it's funny, if you say that women ought to act more like men, this is considered sexist, because it actually is sexist. But if you say that men ought to act more like women, this is considered progressive and forward thinking. The attempt to feminize men is ongoing on the left.
What did you just say?
This prompted me to defend Candace's comments. And I said, this is perfectly obvious. Anyone who pretends it is not a referendum on masculinity for men to don floofy dresses and then be celebrated by magazines like Vogue is gaslighting you. masculinity and femininity are categories. They exist. Right? Some behavior is more masculine, like punching people in the face. Some behavior
How is that
more
more
feminine,
masculine?
like wearing floofy dresses. Right? There are many different forms of masculinity and femininity.
Do you know how much of a weak person you are if your biggest concern is like how others are perceiving you? Like he's talking about Harry Styles wearing a dress as if Harry Styles is being like a girly guy or something. But in reality, if your measurements of like how tough people are is like wearing a mask or something, like the people who say like, oh, I don't want to be seen wearing a mask because then people will think I'm a baby. How much of a freaking baby do you have to be to care that much about others' opinions that you won't wear a mask during a pandemic? Like how much of a little baby, a little crybaby boy do you have to be to care about something like that? And like if you wear a dress, the confidence to do that, regardless of how society is going to look at you, is true alpha shit, you know? Ben Shapiro is a beta.
The most important form of femininity is bearing and rearing
beta,
children. Okay,
as
that
Jesse
is something
Lee
that is endemic biologically
Peterson would say.
to female mammals of all species, is bearing and rearing their young, right? And it is endemic for men and males of all mammalian species to be more aggressive, right? These are just biological realities. To pretend that they are social constructs entirely is completely idiotic and anti-scientific and anti-evidentiary. Masculinity and femininity do exist. And not only that, how does this tie into the whole dress conversation? Outward indicators of masculinity and femininity exist in nearly every human culture, right? We train little boys to be masculine and we train little girls to be more feminine.
Yes, we train males to be a certain gender role and we train females to be a certain gender role. We train that. It's not real. It's not biologically inherent that you're going to be like that. We train people to fit those roles.
Try to breed out of them the toxicity of masculinity or the toxicity of femininity. We try to use civilization to civilize children, but boys are boys and girls are girls, right? And these are important things.
Nope.
Boys ought to be allowed to act
but he's
like
so close. He's so close to the truth, you know?
Boys. Girls ought to be allowed to act like girls. Boys are taught...
Why? Okay, so girls should be allowed to act like girls, but girls should not be allowed to act like boys. Boys should not be allowed to act like girls, whatever that means.
To be more masculine in virtually every human culture. This is not a Western-centered thing. Boys are taught to be more masculine in virtually every human culture because the role of men is not, in fact, always the same as the role of women. There can be crossover. Men and women can do very many of the same jobs, but to suggest that men and women are identical and they are widgets created by social conditioning is just bullcrap. It is not true. It is not scientific.
And saying that men and women are all the same based on their assigned gender role is bullshit.
Scientifically true. It is a violation of actual scientific biology. There are differences between men and...
Oh my god, the biology understander. You know, the old, I read my biology textbook in 5th grade, so now I understand. I understand it all.
Women on the broad range. That does not mean that there's not, again, men who act more like women or women who act more like men. They're not more feminine.
One of the most common combos that people...
Really? YouTube will let ads on this shit, but all my videos get demonetized? Are you kidding me? Come on, YouTube.
Or masculine women, right? All of that exists. But the fact that there is a spectrum of human biology does not mean there are not poles. There are indeed poles, right? As in P-O-L-E-S, there are poles, masculine and feminine. The left knows this. In fact, the point of the Harry Styles photo shoot is to violate those poles, right? Is to feminize masculinity. Olivia Wilde says it herself. The idea is to rethink masculinity as femininity, to feminize men, to get rid of toxic masculinity by suggesting that men should act like women. Otherwise, it would not be headline-worthy for Harry Styles to put on a dress.
No, the toxic masculinity part is being pissed off when a guy decides to wear a dress. It has nothing to do with men acting like women. It's about you getting pissed off about it. That's the toxic part.
Just about Harry Styles, again, playing with dress the way he says that it is. Then he would have dressed up as a giant baby in a diaper with a pacifier, right? Like, he's not doing that. He's dressing up in a woman's gown because he's attempting to make a point, which is that men should be more like women, right? And the left knows this. They know this. They openly say that gender is both important and socially constructed, right? They say that gender is actually inborn, but also socially constructed, right? They want it both ways. They say that gender is a social construction, and that it's that femininity
He's losing
is
it.
Men cramming down the patriarchy.
He doesn't understand
but
it.
They will also say that gender, which is the manifestation of biology, right?
Nope.
But they don't think so. They think that
gender isn't the manifestation of biology.
Gender is just your femininity or masculinity.
No,
is
they don't
actually
say that
inborn
either.
And inherent to you.
No,
so
they
they say that a
don't.
man can be a
No,
woman,
no,
even though there's no
no,
biological
no.
underpinning. So gender is real, but also it's socially constructed. It's all self-contradictory.
No,
But
all of
let's assume for
what
a
you
second
just said is socially constructed, you dumbass.
the honesty of some folks on the left who at least acknowledge that femininity and masculinity exist. They also have indicators, outward indicators. Dress has been, for virtually all time and in virtually all cultures, an outward indicator, which is why the Bible explicitly says that it is against cross-dressing, for example. Okay, but in virtually every culture, men and women dress differently. This does not mean that all men...
Wait, what? What does the Bible say? What? What's a sin? Cross-dressing? What? Who would do that? Who would cross-dress? I don't know.
dress the same, and all women in all cultures dress the same. It means that in every culture, there is a distinction between how men dress and how women dress. The stupidest form of the argument that I saw yesterday online was, well, in Scotland, they wear kilts. That means that a man in America wearing a skirt, a floofy skirt, is the same as a man in Scotland.
Why does he like the word floofy so much? What does floofy mean to him? Does floofy have some other connotation?
Wearing a kilt. No, because they also distinguish between how men wear clothes and women wear clothes in Scotland, too. It's just that men wear different clothes than men in America. It's the most idiotic thing. People are like, well, yeah, back in Roman times, men wore togas.
The point is, nothing is wrong with Harry Styles wearing a dress. Because, and they're using a point from another country where that country's social standards don't say it's wrong. Look at his face. He looks so look at this pause. Look at this frame right here I paused on. Like
Stan, those were basically just dresses, yes. And women wore a different form of clothing at the time.
Yeah, he's literally just advocating for fundamentalism and traditionalism. That's all he's advocating for. Conservatism to a T. Nothing can ever change. We must stay backwards.
Women and men were distinguishable by dress. They have always been distinguishable by dress in virtually every human culture. And noting that men wore floofier stuff in the 16th century in Britain does not change the fact that women wore completely different clothing in the 16th century in Britain.
This is such a stupid and immature and pointless point that he's making. Like, this is really revealing how dumb this argument really is. Like, this point right here.
Right, this is a category error, you morons.
You morons.
To suggest that because men wore something, like a kilt in Scotland, that if you transferred over to America would look more
Oh, yeah, good point. He can't say gay or anything, so he says floofy. Okay, I get it.
Feminine. Therefore, a man
sense.
wearing a skirt in America in 2020 is just the same in the male-female paradigm as a man wearing a kilt in Scotland in 1590 is insane and idiotic and ridiculous on its face.
It's insane. Like, imagine getting this mad over this issue. It's always the most pointless shit they get mad over, these culture war people. It's never the housing crisis. It's never the economy. It's never the stock market crashing. It's never an upward transfer of wealth to the richest Americans. It's never Americans losing health care. It's these dumbass issues, and they don't even understand their own arguments.
And we all know that. Okay, pretending that men dressing like women is not about feminizing men is ridiculous because they are overtly celebrating the fact that Styles is feminizing masculinity. So this is all a big gaslighting effect, right? The left will do this. The left's routine is this. Look how important and magical it is that Harry Styles is wearing a dress. He's subversively undermining masculinity by bringing the effect of femininity to the masculine. And that's real masculinity, isn't a dude wearing a dress. And then people on the right are like, yes, men wearing dresses does undermine masculinity by making it more feminine. And that is a bad thing. And then folks on the left don't respond by saying, well, why is it a bad thing to feminize masculinity? Because then they would lose the argument, because masculinity has very many good things and ought to be upheld. Instead,
did he say one good thing about masculinity? His argument right here literally was, because masculinity has, end quote, he said, very many good things.
Instead, what the left does is this weird gaslighting shut up routine where they say, how dare you say that men wearing dresses undermines masculinity? You on the left, you said that wearing a dress undermines masculinity.
He's literally yelling at a scarecrow right now. Like a straw man of enormous propensity.
The whole point of putting people on the cover of magazines who are men wearing dresses. Okay, so here's the bottom line.
Men can't wear dresses.
Who listen to this sort of stuff and they go, well, why aren't we talking about political races? Why aren't we talking about tax rates? Why aren't we talking about
he's
policy?
Responding to me.
This stuff matters. It matters because these are fundamental ideas to the preservation of a civilization. Boys and girls are different. boys and girls are different. It is important to inculcate in your children that boys and girls are different. And any parent who fails to inculcate in a boy that manliness is a good thing and that responsible manliness helps build civilization,
He provided no arguments towards his premise at all.
any parent who does not teach their girls that femininity, meaning
He just showed complete outrage, nothing else, no substance.
the protection of hearth and home,
Other than, masculinity is good. Source, trust me, bro. Trust me. It's good.
masculinity is a good thing. Any person who doesn't teach their girls that is not doing their kid any favors. And they are undermining the civilizational compact between men and women that exists based on biology in virtually every human culture. And the left knows that they can't win this argument because biology cuts
You
directly
have
against
no
them. Science
argument.
cuts directly
Biology?
against them. So instead, they just confuse it.
This is what you do. You just say biology, science. You're wrong. You're stupid. The left, biology, science, facts over feelings, baby. That's all you say. Just have no facts, only show feelings, and then accuse the other side of doing that. God, it's so beautiful.
Instead, they just play these stupid semantic little games where they say that masculinity and
Your
femininity
entire argument was a semantic game. Holy.
are interchangeable. And if you say no, they say, how dare you? How dare you? It's absurd and it's ridiculous. And we shouldn't be shy about discussing these issues because the left certainly isn't shy.
Create your future.
Did he give one argument? He didn't give. Okay, why is masculinity good? Is it because, like, what has masculinity upheld over society? Over, like, history? And can you use this argument for other things? Like the argument, like, this is how things always were, therefore it can't change. This is how things always were, therefore it's good. We all know where those arguments end up leading.
Discussing these issues, the left will put these in public schools, right? The left will tell your kindergartner that
The left will make sure people in public schools are learning science. Updated science. Not the 5th grade stuff from the 80s, but the real new shit. Gender science. Sociology. Don't let them indoctrinate your kids with ideas and education.
men wear dresses. And then you'll be explaining to a 5-year-old why real men do not wear dresses. And I don't feel that that is an acceptable ramification of our cultural discussion, is that you're supposed to shut up because it's offensive and rude for you to say that boys and girls are different. But it is inoffensive and groundbreaking to treat as completely without debate that men and women are exactly the same in every respect, except that men suffer from toxic masculinity that must be bred out of them by wearing 17th century floofy dresses on the cover of Vogue. The answer to that is no. And I'm glad all of y'all really enjoy your Harry Styles music. And Harry Styles is a free man living in a Western country. And by the way, a West defended by quite masculine men as a general rule.
What?
Okay, that is
Defended by quite masculine men as a genuine rule?
congratulations
Or
to
a
Harry
general
Styles.
rule,
You can
or
enjoy
whatever.
His music. I'm not saying don't pick up his CDs. I'm not saying don't listen to his music.
Yeah, he's canceling Harry Styles. This is his disclaimer at the end, because of course the left is who cancels people. But you know, I'm not saying don't pick up his CDs. I'm not saying anything. All I'm saying is Harry Styles is leading to the destruction of Western civilization. But you can still buy his music.
I'm not saying don't watch the movies he's in. All I'm saying is that when you put out there an argument that men ought to act like women and that this is a good thing, you're doing something that undermines and tears at the fabric of not only civilization.
This guy's wife is a doctor. Like, you think they'd let a woman be a doctor in the 50s or 40s without the wars when women had to take over in the States and be nurses? Are you kidding me? Men wouldn't, like, throughout history, men wouldn't let women do that. In the 1900s, are you kidding me? They were second-class citizens. All women would be put underneath masculinity.
But of families, it tears at the fabric of child rearing.
But
and
that
child raising,
changed,
and
because
everybody
progress is
with
good.
half a brain knows this. And don't be silenced by people who just tell you that it's rude to talk about it while simultaneously demanding.
I'll
that
talk about it with anybody. I don't think it's rude to talk about it. I think it's rude to lie about it and gaslight the entire conversation and provide no arguments. I think it's just really dumb. And, you know,
you put on the Kramer AIDS ribbon, or they're going to club you about the head for not celebrating.
they're going to
that which
club you.
don't-
It's all this, they're so drawn into this point that the left somehow, if you don't adopt to these new social norms, the left is going to come up with a baseball bat and swing it at your head and kill you. the left is going to be the one, just hurting you if you do not adopt to the Harry Styles doctrine of wearing dresses as men. Amazing. Yeah, the left is just gonna like, if you're too masculine, the left is literally, not figuratively, the left is literally gonna get a big club and just hit you on the head until you're not masculine anymore, until the masculinity falls out of your ears. That's actually what happens. I've seen it before online. Yeah, no one's forcing him to wear floofy things. This is an authoritarian position. This guy calls himself a freaking libertarian. There's nothing about him that's a libertarian. Nothing about him is a lib.